And we can go to Buckingham Palace now, actually, and join our royal reporter, Cameron Walker, who is there for us. Cameron, how are those crowds?
The crowds are growing steadily here, Gloria. People continue to flock to, I suppose, the centrepiece of the British monarchy here in central London, Buckingham Palace. Despite the lack of royal family being here in London, they still continue to flock to lay flowers to pay their respects to Her Majesty the Queen. The sun is beaming down on central London right now, and there is a sea of flowers in Green Park as well, where this memorial garden has been set up. So kind of overflow flowers, if you like, have been taken from the gates of Buckingham Palace to Green Park. Now, we've had some more detail in the last hour about the type of uniform that members of the royal family will be wearing over these ceremonial events which are happening in this period of national mourning for Her Majesty the Queen. So the uniform is going to be worn by working members of the royal family, military uniform that is, for the 5 ceremonial events happening over the next week or so. So that includes the service of Thanksgiving at St Giles Cathedral a little bit later on this afternoon in Edinburgh, the procession to Westminster Hall, that's the Queen's coffin being taken from Buckingham Palace here behind me down the Mall towards Westminster Hall, where Her Majesty will lie in state for 4 full days. The vigil at Westminster Hall, that famous vigil of the princes, first started following the death of George V, and it's a tradition that has continued since then. The state funeral, of course, at Westminster Abbey is also going to be part of those rules, and the committal service at St George's Chapel in Windsor too, where Her Majesty the Queen is finally laid to rest. Now, what is significant is the vigil, because that is the only time that Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, it has been kind of permitted to wear a military uniform, and that is out of respect for Her Majesty the Queen. Of course, Prince Andrew is no longer a working member of the royal family, but an exception has been made for this particular vigil, which points to the fact that he will be part of this vigil of the princes, which will be happening at some point during Her Majesty lying in state at Westminster Hall. But a big question mark remains over the Duke of Sussex and whether the same rules apply to him and whether he is allowed to wear military uniform during the vigil of the princes. Of course, Prince Harry stepped back as a senior working member of the royal family in March 2020. We have not had any kind of official confirmation on Prince Harry, but reports in the last couple of minutes have started to emerge that Prince Harry will not be allowed to wear military uniform, unlike Prince Andrew at any vigil for Her Majesty the Queen when she is lying in state. That is unconfirmed. When we do have confirmation, I will bring that news straight to you. But the question mark remains, does the same rules apply to Prince Harry than they do to Prince Andrew?
Cameron, as you were speaking there, I think we saw the gun salute from Edinburgh Castle going on, which I think indicates that the ceremony of the keys is actually officially underway or has actually taken place. But we still understand that Harry, as Duke of Sussex, will be part of the Prince's vigil, even if he is in mourning dress as such, a mourning suit, rather than his military uniform.
Yes, that's correct. We do understand that Prince Harry is going to be taking part in the vigil, but you're right. He, as far as we're aware, and if the reports are to be believed, he will not be wearing military uniform. However, I have a suspicion that he will, although he'll be wearing a mourning suit, he'll be wearing his military medals, because that's what we saw him do, as well as the Duke of York during his grandfather's funeral, the Duke of Edinburgh. So although he was in a mourning suit, he was still permitted to wear those military medals. So it wouldn't surprise me if we saw something similar over the next week or so at these big ceremonial events.
And do we think that's the same for the Duke of York as well, who of course served as a helicopter pilot in the Falklands?
Yes, I believe so. I've been given some guidance, perhaps, that we might, during this procession from the Palace of Holyrood this afternoon up to St Giles Cathedral, the Duke of York, of course, will not be wearing military uniform because he is no longer a working member of the royal family, but perhaps he will be wearing medals associated with his service in the Falklands and so on.